Okay, thank you so much, Debbie and Howard, for actually giving me this opportunity to come and share my mind, right? I'm just sharing, I'm going to be sharing based on my experience and also based on what I've been observing throughout my career. And also, even though I might not go through the nitty-gritties of each and every component that I'm going to be presenting today, but I'm hoping that it will, I'm actually trying to share my screen. I'm hoping that each and every component that I'm going to talk about today, it will actually trigger you guys if you have questions so that we can start having a conversation. Probably if we can just have a conversation, if you want to say something, please raise your hand. Or if you just have a question, please also put it on the chat box. But I won't see, Debbie, I won't see a hand, and I'm also not going to see a chat. So if there's a question, please let me know. So
I will
that
do eyes.
Yes, thank you so much. I try to use one screen in presentations because using multiple screens sometimes can mess up with you, right? All right, so thank you so much to everybody, the entire DAMA Association, and for everybody who joined. I just saw later, earlier on, I saw some familiar names, and I'm just hoping that it's people that I know, as I thought. So welcome to everybody for that. So without any much waste of time, right, let's just get into it and we'll take it from there. But before I even share my thoughts around data centralization and report automation. So it's two different components and they're very big, right? Data centralization means a lot because there are a lot of different processes that need to take place, right? Before the data is centralized. And also report automation as well. There's a lot of processes that needs to be followed before that data could be automated via certain report, whatever tool of your choice that you may be using. So, but before we get into there, I just want to ask you a question of which you don't have to answer now, but you can answer maybe over the chat box or something if you want to. Okay, so the question is, imagine you are in a supermarket, right? A very big hypermarket, you are there, big, like hyper, okay? And then think of it like macro, something even more than that. And you are there, you want to stock up on your bakery products because you want to go home and bake for your family or for your children, right? Even for your friends. And then you know the list, you have all the list of things that you want to gather, right? But when you get there, when you get to macro or when you get to whatever hypermarkets of your choice, you find that flour, the baking flour, right, is somewhere on aisle 1. Okay, and you successfully get your is it self-raising flour or whatever kind of a flour that you are looking for. And then when you check on your list, the baking soda is on aisle 20, right? You have to walk, go to aisle 20 and get your baking soda and the list, so on and so on. And let's say for those who love coffee as well, you know that your favorite coffee beans, probably you found them on aisle number 5, but for you to get the honey or sugar or whatever sweetener that you use, you have to walk and go to aisle number 19 to get that, and so forth and so forth. For me, I think it will be a little bit frustrating. I don't think I would enjoy that. I doubt I would. So I'm actually going to take you through the same context and the same concept as well so that you can understand the benefits, right? Because we will all wish that every product that I want to use relating to or related to baking, I need to get it at least on one aisle. Please, I don't want to travel the whole store. If I want my coffee or breakfast, I just need to get it from one aisle. I don't want to be running around asking the cashiers, asking the floor managers, asking everybody around the floor, where is sugar? And you go there, you see white sugar, and then you're like, okay, there's no brown sugar, and you have to go around again and ask for brown sugar, and they will point you onto a different place. So that is the context where I'm trying to outlay or to outline the benefit of having a data centralized or of having data centralized in your environment or in your business, wherever you are, because there are benefits that come to it. Okay, so I'm moving to the next slide, which seems frozen. I don't know why.
We're totally blaming Teams. It was not playing well with Debbie, and Faith, now it's not playing well with you.
Definitely Teams. It cannot be me.
There you go.
Also, my mouse was not. So I was, okay, now I see I'll have to play around here. Okay, so this is just the agenda of the day. We'll speak through the data centralization, the report automation benefits. And remember, when I'm saying benefits, I'm not talking the how, because I believe it will take like entire year or entire month to discuss the how part, but we're just going to be talking about the benefits, and the more you understand the benefits, it's the more you're going to be interested into implementing and understanding the how part of it. And also because we need to also understand the data limitation. As much as we want to automate the processes as much as we can, and we want to centralize the data as much as we can, we also need to know, to understand the possible limitations that we might encounter, right? And also understand and know the manual processes around. You know, when I'm talking about the manual processes, I'm talking about any type of data that is stored elsewhere that is not a system. It could be, I know that Excel, some companies regard it as a system, but it could be Excel, it could be Access, it could be Word, it could be anything that is not a system or is not automated, or it's not a database, if I can put it like that, then you have to understand all those manual processes so that you can get the full view of where your data is. Imagine going in the supermarkets again, and then they tell you that brown sugar is not there, only to find out that brown sugar, it is there, but in the storeroom, right? So think of it like that, to say it's to understand such things. What are the things that I might not have in the different aisles? What are the things that are not present in my view or in my sight? So I need to know them. So think of the manual processes like that. And then also, I'm just gonna, not in detail as well, I'm just gonna talk on a very high level on having the control framework as well, benefits, and also the data quality framework benefits. I'm just gonna talk through that, and trust me, my slides are very few. I think I've got about 11 slides. And trust me, I don't talk a lot, but it depends, but I don't talk a lot. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. Okay, so some of the data centralization benefits, right, are that are to enhance the infrastructure for reporting. So by that, I mean, you know exactly how your infrastructure looks like. So this will speak more around your data flows, understanding how your data moves between systems to get to a point of reporting. So if we centralize the data, it will actually enhance it, because now you have one store for you to just go, or rather one aisle for you to just go and get the data for you to build up the reports that you want to build. And then also it improves the decision making across the business. Imagine having all the information that you want within a click of a button, or in a click of a button. The data is there. You don't have to ask questions. Okay, yes, you need to ask questions on your SMEs and the experts, but you know what I mean, right? Imagine you have all the data accessible to you. Then it means you can make even better decisions, because you know most of your answers would be actually, or rather questions would actually be answered there and there in that store that you actually have built. And also it reduced the likelihood and severity of financial losses. Imagine if you were to lend to customers that you haven't even rated, you haven't even checked, you don't even know where they're based, you don't even know what are they all about, for you to make sure that you provide the services or to them, or the sales, or whatever it is that you provide as a company. You might end up lending to people that you shouldn't be lending to, stuff like that. So having the data as Centralized, you are able to also draw from that data like analysis, insights for you to make better decisions, right? To make sure that the financial losses or possible financial losses are also eliminated. And then it also improves the speed at which information is available. Because if you find everything in that one aisle, trust me, you're not going to be traveling throughout the store from aisle 1 to aisle 20 to look for what you're looking for, but you will just get the baking ingredients in one aisle, and then you're happy to go. You go to the cashiers and then you pay. And also it enhanced the management of information across the business. You manage well what you know. We can only manage the things that we are aware of and the things that we know of. Things that are not in our sight, we can't manage, because what are we going to be managing, because we do not know. So once the data is available and everybody has a view of the kind of data that you have within the company, then, better management is going to come out from this, and also having the information across the business that will make you have better management decisions, for an example. So it also enhanced something like that as well. And it definitely improves the company's quality of strategic planning, because as a business, we might be driving sales for today, but there is a strategy that we are following on, or we are led by a strategy, right? By that particular strategy. And in that particular strategy, we are able then to plan and prioritize. So it will improve how we plan in future, because imagine if you've identified all those things that I've just that I've just listed, like understanding your limitations, of which I'm going to go through it now, and understanding what manual processes are available that we can see, that we can try to automate. It will actually make you plan and prioritize for the next coming year or for the next 2 years, for you to have a breakdown of all the initiatives that you want to do as a company, or you want to implement as a company. So it will just give you that great and nice strategic planning. Okay, so this is a picture that I tried to draw. So earlier on, I spoke a lot about data flows, understanding the data flow. So this is an example of a very high level data flow, so that you understand that, okay, I've just made an enterprise data warehouse as a store. It doesn't mean that in your company you need to have an enterprise data warehouse. It could be anything. But for big data, things like those big other systems like your Hadoops or your EDWs and all that, they could also be considered in this view as well. So what's one of the benefits of data centralization is that you are able to know where the data is coming from, and you are also able to create other smaller initiatives or mini projects that will help you get to the bigger picture that you want to achieve, which is the central storage of data, right? So in that way, a lot of things could be eliminated, like taking a manual file. It could be, let's say, probably you run sales and you have reps, right, in your company that goes and collect the information from customers, right? And then when they collect the information from customers, someone has to capture it in, this looks like I tried to make an interface. So an interface needs to be entered through an interface so that it can go to that particular database. It could be your CRM or your ERP or whatever system that you use to make sure that you manage the entire product life cycle as well, or the service life cycle. So this could be the right way. This would definitely be the right way to make sure that everything that we store, we try to automate it, because if the data gets into a system via an interface, for an example, then there are a lot of things that we can check up for, which I'm going to cover later, rather than having a file, just an Excel or a CSV file being loaded directly to the EDW or whatever that central store that you would be building. It would be great as an intake, but the maintenance of it it's really not going to be reliable, because how are you going to do your impact analysis? How are you going to see, how are you going to do your analysis in terms of who, when, and how was this data captured? But if we were trying to follow this route, then it will actually make things easier for us. So look at it as different source systems that are around the company. A lot of them around the company, some of them we know, but some of them you find out that we don't know. They're supposed to be here, but we don't know, because we are very reliant on getting the information from other people. Imagine a world where you want to build a report. And when you build a report, you say, hi, Faith, can I please have last month's sales? And I'm like, okay, no, it's fine. And I say, hi, Howard, can you please give me last month's sales? And Howard will like, okay, no, when do you need them? Like, okay, I need them as in like now. It's like, okay, wait a minute, Debbie, can you please send me the list of last month's sales? You know, and then if that happens, whatever that I get at the end of the day, I'm not even sure whether the data, there are any other data adjustments or manual adjustments that were made. I use what I take. I use what I was given. So the data validation is not even there, but you find that the information is given, but it's not really validated because it moves between different hands, and anything could happen in a manual spreadsheet like that. So I will touch base on those manual processes when I go further. And then here, okay, so now we're just going to move to the report automation benefits, what it actually does, right? So when you go through a journey of automating your reports, what you need to make sure, in most cases, which it's most cases, you just develop once. When you understand your requirements well, and you understand your data flow that I've just mentioned now, and you understand the other processes that are in place, you can just spend, it could be a year or 2 years or 3 months or 1 month, it depends on how big the project is, just to develop once for the benefit of business and any user that wants to utilize the data, to just go in there and click, 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 click for them to just get the data. So it's just that you report once, you build once and you report forever. And then another one is that you have a multi-perspective view of data. So remember, when we build reports, we're trying to tell a story. So in whatever reports that we create, whatever dashboard or views that we create, we are telling a story. And that story gives us the different views. You can slice and dice the data the way you want. As long as you have the data and it's centralized, then you can get different views that you want to do, or rather you want to report on for that particular quarter, or even for during times of stress, the stress reporting and stuff like that, of which I will get to it later. And also you get the up-to-date and accurate information, because remember, it's a project. There are analysts there. There are people who gather the requirements as well. Could be the business analysts and the also data analysts, people who will actually do what it takes to make sure that you get the right data. And the process, we have the ETLs running in place, and also we have the control frameworks and the data quality frameworks that I'm going to take you through later, that will make sure we get the most accurate information to use. So once you get to that point, you don't even have to worry and say, the data that we reported on last month, was it accurate? No, you don't have to, because a lot of work has been done already for you to just click and get the view of what you want to see. And it also reduced the possible human error, because imagine if we are working on it could be a manual file. We're working on it, I work on it today, right? I get sick or whatever the case is, I don't come to the office, and someone has to work on that file, and something happened, people leave, and we hire new staff, other people have to work on that. So there could be a lot of human error in there. But if a system is built once, then you are able, even if, let's say, you have a new analyst in a year's time, or you have a new dev in a year's time, everything would be documented and everything would be in place. So you just need to go in there and make sure that you view if you want to change certain data, or when you want to view it in a different way. So everything is just going to be well managed there. And also it removes the dependency of multiple sources, the scenario that I've just stated right now, to say I would ask for a file from Howard will ask from Debbie and all that. So it just reduces that type of dependency as well. And also what I have here.
Sorry, Faith.
Yes.
We've got two questions, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about that. I'm not sure why I'm getting feedback. So the first question was from Esty, and her question is, ideally you start this with this from inception of your company to establish that data warehouse, and it was actually part of not this slide, but not the previous one, the one before. It was around your EDW that you were sharing with all the different sources. And her question is, what is the tipping point where the value for an EDW starts to outweigh the costs?
Okay. It will also depend on what you have put in and what are the benefits to be realized as well. Because when we build anything, it could be a house, it could be a home, it could be data, right? It could be an EDW. You have to understand what are the benefits, where are you trying to go? So if we spend $1 million, am I going to realize that benefits in a year or 2 years or 3 years? So hence I said there's a lot of things that needs to be put in place before we can even come to this decision.
Right. Esty, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's almost like we need to spend some time, I want to say, properly analyzing and investigating whether EDW is necessary, and then really continue. Okay. Because it's going to take time. It's not an immediate solution, or like ROI will only be like maybe in 12 months or 18 months time.
Yeah, if you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah, if you're very lucky.
Yeah. And then one more question, Faith, it's from Marcel. He said, what is your view on not creating data centralization, but rather applying data virtualization? So, Marcel, maybe just to expand on that, that would be, instead of moving all the data, is it possible to create a virtual layer across the different areas and render it in that way? What is your view on that?
I think it all depends on the needs of the business, right? If you look at the current state of your business and you understand it well, then you could decide what is it that you want. But also what I've noticed is that the company is centralized, but the smaller the company, then the need is really not there, because you find that there's only 2 systems or there's only 3 systems. But when the company is big and there are a lot of things that are happening, it could be even not systems, it could be manual processes, like I said. Therefore, upon the assessment, right, people might, or in most cases, they would actually consider centralizing the data. So it just depends on the maturity of your business. That's what I would say.
Okay. Marcel, does that answer your question?
Thanks, Howard. I believe so, but I think sometimes the effort is just not worthwhile to consolidate everything into a data warehouse, where you'd rather put down a virtualization layer so that you can rather extract, because your data quality and all that would have already been developed in those source systems, and rather put a data quality, a data virtualization layer on top of that to extract the data, and then rather present it through that layer to your data science teams.
That's actually a good one. That's actually a good one. I also like that as well. It's just that we just need to consider the amount of systems that we have that DQ could run on, and amount of manual data that we have, or processes that we have, that DQ cannot run upon, because you would want to, because even if you, let's say, but I will touch on DQ later, right? You would actually have DQ over the EDW, whatever that gets inside Teradata or whatever big data environment that you have, whatever gets in here would have to pass through, firstly, that control framework that I was talking about earlier, and secondly, the DQ framework as well will run in here to check everything at once that comes in here. But as I said, I think it all depends on where as a business you are heading to, and then you would make whatever decisions accordingly that will suit the business.
Okay. Thanks, Faith.
Okay, thanks. Where was I?
You
I
were
was
on the
here.
yeah, yes, correct. That's where you were, yeah.
Okay, I was here. Thank you. So here I'm trying to show the benefits of having everything centralized and automated, right? So we're just focusing on this part here to say if like a lot would have happened in between here as well, understanding the report requirements, and a lot of analysis will also will happen here. By the time it comes here, it would be signed off by business and it would be signed off by those people who are actually who will be impacted by this, right? So when it comes in here, the human error is not there. As I mentioned earlier on, you just click. If the requirement change or they just need additions, then it needs to go via a process. It's either, I don't know, some people will raise a request or a change, logo change. It will go through that entire life cycle just for this data that is here to be amended or to be added or whatever the case is, right? But here, you build once and you click to get whatever reports for like forever, for almost forever, right? And then in that way, because there are no questions of saying, where did you get this data? Where is that data coming from? Because that would be, okay, that would be analyzed and investigated and done in this portion so that whatever comes here makes sense for these people, which is our stakeholders, could be the users, it could be the execs, it could be anyone who are just going to be happy. As you can see the smiles I tried, you see the smiles there, they could be happy because they can now make better decisions. For an example, let's say here, you are giving a view of where your most sales are by region, probably, right? You would know that it seems like we are selling more in Joburg, but not really in KZN. And then it will create an opportunity for you to start business in KZN. So if those views are here, just in nice, beautiful graphs, visuals, just at the glance of looking at your visual, you could easily make decisions based on looking at those visuals. And then obviously it will just have a business improvement. It will improve your business in a way you'll start seeing change. Sometimes you find that the benefits sometimes depend on what you are building it for. Sometimes in most cases, the benefits would be the swift processes that are happening within the company, right? And also driving sales or whatever improvement in your services that you are providing as a company. Okay. And then now that we have a bigger picture of where we want to go, we have a bigger picture of, yes, big data, and yes, EDW or whatever centralized store, and yes, automated reporting. Sometimes it's not as swift and as easy as we would think to say just plug in that system and then you get the data and you go report. Sometimes there are limitations, right? And limitations, I have about 6 limitations here, but I'm not saying it's all the limitations. You know, maybe you will identify another limitation that you are facing in your company that I don't have it here, but just note it as the limitation. Sometimes it could be the coverage limitation, the inaccessibility of data. Let's say most of your system or some of the system are vendor-based, right? They're provided by the vendor. It could be the vendor will create a data mart for you, or the vendor will give you the files for you to access that information. But the challenge with that is that you don't have a full end-to-end data lineage. You just work based on what you are given. Not saying we shouldn't trust the external sources, we should, but it's also great to have that end-to-end data, that end-to-end data lineage as well. Because sometimes there's certain things that you want to do or you would want to improve, but you can't improve unless certain change management is considered between a vendor and a business. And sometimes it might take time and it might be even costly as well, because there's a lot of IP that we pay for, and also just to get probably like an additional attribute or whatever the case is, the financial implementation. So that could also be logged as one of the limitations as well, to say these are the limitations that I have for these particular systems. But sometimes you find that due to legal or laws or regulatory laws, there's information that you can't get. I'm just going to make an example with the POPI Act, right? POPI Act, it says do not show the customer information, right? And because depending on whether they're active or not active, there's masking, there's also de-identification as well. Sometimes the data cannot be provided because of that legal or regulatory information. Let's say you want to report on whatever 5 years or 6 years data, for an example. You can't get that information because of the popular regulations, and we could also lock that as a limitation to say we are accepting the data as it is and we are reporting on it as it is, even though we understand the certain views that we can't have because of legal or regulatory laws as well. And also sometimes it could be a model performance. A model is ran on algorithms, a lot of formulas are built to make the model work, right? But you find that in most cases, what I've seen as well in my experience is that the users, or what we call the business, would know if a certain model is not giving us the numbers that we want to see. Like they would tell, no, this is not the number I'm expecting. And they will try to do a manual workaround to prove why they're saying that it's not the number that needs to be spewed by the model, right? And then because there's a manual way now of correcting these figures that you get from a report, from the model, we can't automate manual spreadsheets, right? So it means if you have a limitation on your model, because sometimes if the model is not working accordingly, it's scrapped and a new one is built. And it's a project on its own, and depending on your timelines, sometimes you might not even wait for that model to be re-implemented or re-looked at. And you just need to note all those limitations down. And also data quality as well could be one of the huge limitation. You find that because in data quality, we check for things like completeness, validity, correctness, and you find that in most, the data that you need is incomplete for you to make better decisions. You can't make better decisions because maybe only 30% of addresses are captured in the system. And therefore, you can't send hand mail, or for an example, contact information is not there. Therefore, it means as a business, you don't know who your clients are in terms of marketing. You can't target people to sell whatever that you're selling to, or whatever marketing campaigns that you want to run, because the information is not there, right, to make better decisions and stuff like that. So data quality is actually one of the biggest limitations as well that you could find, and the manual processes, but where the expert judgment is concerned. Like I've made an example here on model performance to say people will apply their expert judgment to say this number is not supposed to look like this. I know how it's supposed to look like, right? And they will prove it and then provide whatever number. And that also can speak. The reason why I separated them is that sometimes it could not be based on a model. Sometimes it could just be based on a source system or whatever source that you are using to get that information, and only to find out that expert judgment is applied. And also sometimes it's tacit knowledge as well. People know, they've been here around for a number of years, so they know, and because they know and they've been around, they're able to make decisions, so we can't transfer what we know for the past 10 years or 20 years into a system. So sometimes it becomes a limitation as well. And also, like I've mentioned earlier, to say sometimes you have to ask yourself questions that should there be any urgent report that I need to build. It could be by regulators that I need to produce now. Are my reports and the data, is it flexible enough for me to get the information, or I will have to rebuild or re-implement for me to get certain information? So you have to also identify that limitation as well. And I would also advise that you keep them in a register, and they also follow they're accepted in a forum. If we have forums in the businesses, they could be accepted in a forum to say this is the limitation, is known, it has been communicated, and then it's accepted. Then it gets logged in the register and people attest to it so that we all know. And the beauty of this is that it helps us plan better. Some of the limitations, they're not permanent, but some of them you find that they're permanent, there's nothing you can do, you just need to live with it. But those that are not permanent, they then create an opportunity of other initiatives within the company that will actually improve the way we report and improve our day-to-day lives as well as the company. So this is just the picture. So I'm just going to take you through in a picture view, right? So that I make sense. So I spoke about the coverage, right? Limitation. Here, I think the sign says no entry, right? I think I got it right. So it says no entry because of whatever boundaries that are created around the system. There is no entry. Sometimes you find that is a on-prem system, but it's a black box for some reason. It's one of those legacy systems that we built 100 years ago, and we don't have ways of getting in there, and we just get whatever that we get. Sorry. Oh, okay. And you just get whatever that you get, and this could be the limitation as well, because in that sense, then it means you will have to have it via whatever manual process, or it could be a file, or sometimes it could even be the smaller data marts and stuff like that. And it does not give us the full view of our data lineage, because our data lineage will have to, sometimes it ends here, right? And then this is the expert judgment that I spoke about as well, to say we cannot purely rely on the data maybe at first hand until it is discussed in some forum, because after it has been discussed, then this data that's here needs to be overridden. So you find that there are multiple runs that needs to happen every month. The initial run that will pull the data, right? And the second run that will also happen after the expert judgment has been applied. And all this will also happen via file, right? And I just have data quality here, but it doesn't mean you can have data quality issues in one system. Data quality issues could be across systems, right? And as I mentioned earlier, that data quality could be a problem because it does not give us that view of the true information or data that you want to see. And also the human tested knowledge, where I've been around, I know my clients, and I know the information, and then they build the reports based on what they know. But to find out that it's not documented anyway, it's not anywhere, it's just, we have a keyman dependency there. And then it's most likely to make us sad, because we as stakeholders as well, the users and the execs, because the data is not validated. Like, we know there's something missing, we know, but the impact analysis is very big, and therefore it just exhausts us at the end of the month when we need to report. And you find that month in, month out, year in, year out, quarter in, quarter out, the business is not even improving, because there's certain things that you haven't even put into consideration in here. Okay, and then moving to understanding our manual processes. First of all, they need to be identified, right? What are those? So this will help you by understanding the actual business process that takes a user to reports, right? So how I normally do it is, when I do my analysis, I start at the report. I don't do it the other way around. Start at the reports, see the figures, the values that are reported, and then understand where what are the different sources that fit into the report, and do it the other way around up until I get to the golden source. So when you do that analysis like that, you are able to pick up certain things, because you will have conversations with different stakeholders, and they'll be telling you nice stories, different stories for you noting, so that you can also understand what those manual processes are. And once you've identified them, you need to also assess the regulatory impact, right? You need to know what's the regulatory impact. Should everything be wrong here, what would it mean, to our regulators and stuff like that? What would it mean? And also identify the financial impact. Should we get things wrong here, what's the financial impact? And also the client, what's our reputation if we send clients information, the same information that we sent them last week, or whatever the case is, or we are misrepresenting their products that they have with us, or there's a lot of things that we are not doing right. What's the impact around it? Assess that as well. And also the criticality rating, to say, because understanding how critical this is will help you to plan on automating sooner. because you find that most manual processes could be automated. So this, after asking yourself these questions, then the prioritization of what to automate and how to automate will then come after you've given yourself enough time to understand your manual processes. I also have them here explained in a picture as well. You find that, for an example here, it's a spreadsheet. It's just a spreadsheet. There's not even a system. The data is just captured on a spreadsheet, right? And then I have SQL Server here, the SSRS reports or whatever report as an example, to say sometimes we use SQL to collect different data into one script so that we can have one view. It's still manual. Sometimes people say it's semi-automated, but I think it's not even semi-automated at all, because you find that those scripts need to also, they change every time. It's not just an automated script. Sometimes you just need to change it. It could be you change the date, or you change a different file, or whatever the case is. So it's still manual. And sometimes you find that, remember, we could not get into the source one. We could not get in here. You find that the data comes in via a file as well, and here, and then there's a lot of files. And then after you've let's say you've ran your SQL scripts now, those SQL scripts are the outcome of what you've just ran. You need to export it into an Excel so that you can send it to the business. But because we have a manual spreadsheet here, anything could happen. You'll find that certain data adjustment could happen because we're not happy with what SQL is giving us. Probably we missed a rule or whatever the case is, and we're not happy, and we try to fix it. We make it look nice here, right? And then if we make it look nice here, then this really, it means it does not have 100% impact of what you're trying to do, right? And then because of a lot of data adjustments that happened here as well, you find that still we can't really validate because a lot of processes happen here, and we'll have the unvalidated reports, and also we'll just see our business not improving because we can't really put our hand on whatever that we think is an issue. So I'm left with 2 more slides. I'm about to finish. This one, there's a control framework. So on this one, you see, okay, this is a little bit technical, right? But I will try not to make it too technical as well. So what this does is that a control framework is built on top of your centralized store, right? So what it does, look at it as a gateway, right? Look at it as a gateway that is just receiving. And if you are not of a good, I don't want to say good quality, but if maybe let's say the data type clutches the data types from here, clutches with the data type from here, or whatever that is, when we do our ETLs, we pull the data from here and here, control framework will filter out all those problems, because even if, let's say, we run an ETL to pull the data from these sources to here, and something in between happens, in most cases, you find that all the things that could not go in here, they stay behind, they are filtered, they stay behind, right? And whatever that passed and could go, goes in here. So without having a control framework, we wouldn't know what information we are missing. We wouldn't know what information is filtered out. We would think whatever we have here is everything, only to find out that the certain files that didn't go through, a certain type of data that did not go through because they failed some transformation rules here within during the ETLs and migration and all that. So having this it also helps because you can also generate a beautiful report here as well that will be generated every time when you load the data, and have that report so that you can then go and fix. Because if we don't have the control framework and the data is huge, you're trying to bring in the huge data here, then we wouldn't know whether we have it all or not. And without it, we will report thinking that the human error is eliminated and we're happy. And we also report, okay, fine. But sometimes you find that the certain things that wouldn't make sense here, because there's something missing, right? But if we have this, we can then pull up the reports to say what's the data that needs to be relooked at and what are the jobs that needs to be rerun so that you can get it sorted out. You get the reports and then you fix, together with the system guys, fix it up until you get the right data in here. And with that, with the control framework in place, also same story, because everything is centralized, no human error, and then better decision making and the improvement of the business as well. We start to seeing those sales coming in and also starting to see people being serviced well. Okay, so this is DQ, right? And DQ is one of my favorites. I'll explain why. So what happens with DQ as well is that, remember, if you are building insights or reports, I always say when you build a report, you are not just creating a nice visual. You're telling me a story. I need to understand the story from the visual 1, visual 2, and all the visuals and the dashboards that have been created. I need to, after seeing them, I need to understand the story, right, that we are trying to tell. Okay, but because of some data DQ limitations or issues that we experience in between, you find that the story, yes, is told, but there's still a lot number of incomplete fields, incorrect fields, and the data that is not validated, a lot of things that is happening in there. And still, I'm not going to be fully satisfied because I can't make decisions. I made an example earlier to say if we do not capture address or contact details for most of our clients, how are we going to run marketing? How are we going to run sales to those people? Because you don't have that information, right? So what I like about building a DQ framework is that it can happen concurrently. You don't have to wait for the perfect world for you to start reporting. You can still continue reporting on your day-to-day, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, or whatever view that you want to see, while at the same time having the view of the quality of your information, of your data. So in here, you will start building things like the thresholds, your tolerance level to say I can only tolerate 80% of incomplete data, or I cannot tolerate 80% of incomplete data. What I like about this is that out of this framework, also dashboards could be built. You could build a nice dashboard that will give you exactly that view, because there would be, so some people do it manually. Some people would create some SQL scripts in here with the rules and with all the other things to make sure that the different criterias and the rules and everything, they will build it here, and then you will have your dashboard. Some people will have a tool, a DQ tool that will just do everything for you, so that we don't have the DQ devs that will always be sitting and re-looking at the rule every time. So either way, depends on the maturity of your company as well. You could do it manual, and also you could purchase a tool that you can just attach on top of your centralized store for you to get the DQ reports. And then here you get the nice view to see the view of how far you are as a business in terms of where you want to be as a business. Because when you set a target, you say my target is 100% or my target is 98%, and you build a tolerance, which could be 80% or whatever. So you get that view of how far you are maturing as a company or as a business as far as data is concerned. And then also, while you have that view, you can have then the exception report that is drilled down to a record level. It will give you all the records to say these are the records that are failing completeness, these are the records that are failing validity, these are the records that are failing whatever DQ dimensions are there. And then you will take these ones, the reports here, and if it's also an automated, everything is automated, right? So the exceptions reports as well will be automatically sent to whatever distribution list that you have, either every day or whatever the frequency that you set as a company or as a business, for the data stewards and the data owners to go and fix their data. Because unfortunately, fixing of the data We're still yet researching for the ways to make it automated, but it's 100% manual because the data needs to be fixed. And also, one of the tips as well is that, this is my last slide, but allow me to go in here, is that, you know, if you get this right, if this is developed right, the interfaces are developed right with the validation rules in here, trust me, you would have better quality of, you will have a good or a better data quality in the organization. Because sometimes what happens is that the data that is punched in here and the data that is not validated in here, it could be by the end users or whoever that is punching the data. You know, there are no validation rules that we have built. We just capture anything that you feel like, even with errors, you just capture and you capture, and then you will find that you will always have the issues with the data quality with your data. So it's just to always go back here and implement measures that will make sure that it's only clean data that comes in here, at least clean, at least validated. Certain processes need to happen here before capturing the data, so that our world will just be easy and we will worry not when it comes to the quality of our data. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had to present to you today. I know it's a lot, as I said earlier, it's big different components. They could be broken down so that you can focus and talk more around the benefits and probably about the how to do it, you know, if we just break it. But I wanted to give you that full architecture of where most business would want to go to have everything automated and everything accessible to everyone. So yeah, thank you so much. We can take questions or we can have a conversation. I'm happy to do that.
Debs, would you like to manage the conversation?
We can definitely. Thank you, Faith, so much. Yeah, I think we had 2 questions in the beginning. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask?
So there is that one from Miranda about the audit trail, and that was related to that framework around the EDW. So there was a question of saying, is that control framework that Faith was talking about, does it also provide audit trails? I'm expecting that it does.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah.
It does. It does. And also, when you look at it, even the audit trail can happen at the point of migration as well. If you have all your documentations right, and if you have all your mapping documents right, it makes it easy for the audit trail for you to know exactly what the issue is and where it is. So I know sometimes having documents is something that is it's not nice to document, but trust me, along the way, it actually gives that nicer view of what went well and did not go well. And obviously, yes, on the control framework, definitely there will be the audit trail as well through those reports that I mentioned earlier on.
Okay, see Debbie's on mute. Debbie, are you okay? Okay.
Yes. Yes. We have a question from Noha who said, can you give us an example of implementation tools used?
Implementation tools used where, like during the ETL phase or report phase or DQ or just general?
Yeah, I think it's across all your different frameworks that you've presented. What sort of tooling have you used to achieve it?
In terms of report side, I've used ClickView before. I've also used Power BI before. And I've also used, I think it was, IDQ. I've used IDQ before. And I also used this other data quality tool that I'm forgetting now. I've used it before, which we just purchased it from the vendor and we used it. And I've also implemented the rules manually as well.
Okay.
That is...
Yes, I think we had a question from Marcel. He put his hand up, but then I think he brought it down. Marcel, do you have a question or? He's on mute. Marcel, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was busy typing the question.
Okay.
Everybody else a chance. So maybe, Faith, I just have a question. So I see you only have DQ in your diagram after the EDW, but I trust you most probably would have DQ in front when you receive the data or at submission also. So that
Yes,
DQ
definitely.
actually runs kind of parallel process in all your stages of your data.
Yes, so it's also two-way, right? Some people would rather implement, right, the data store, implement it, and then consider DQ after that. Some people, you find that they push DQ framework implementation to different sources. To say source 1, do your own DQ, source 2, do your own DQ, right? So it also depends, but my suggestion is that do implement, migrate, load the data, and do DQ from that end, right? And then feedback whatever exceptions to the source guys so that they will go fix. Other than that, waiting for different source systems to implement their own DQ, it might take forever because as different business units, we don't mature at the same time.
And maybe just to add on to that, Faith, I know that that's a lot of the idea around the data vault. And I like what you were saying there. Sometimes DQ stops data from coming into the warehouse. And so a data vault allows a lot of the data to come in, and only when it's right, it could get into the report. So there's this option of let's get the data in as quickly as possible, make sure we're not losing any of it and forgetting about it. And then when it's ready for reporting, it then goes into the report. So you can choose different approaches to when the DQ is implemented.
Yes, thank you so much, Howard.
We have another question from Masala. It says, I imagine it will be beneficial to implement data quality measurements such that it prevents garbage from point of capture as well, right?
Yeah, so that was the data validation that I spoke about in that interface earlier, to say if we get the validation rules at the point of capture, then we will eliminate a lot of issues. So that's right. Yes, Msela.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Do we have any more questions for Faith?
Okay, no questions. We can go home. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you very much, Faith. That was really valuable.
Faith, I think from my side and from the Daimler side, thank you so much for taking your time to put this together. It takes a lot of bravery. You've been superb. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So what are you going to do for us next year?
What do you mean?
I'm sure you'll have another talk available.
It depends, man. If we would like to drill down on the topics, on the different components, I'm happy. I can do this all day, every day.
Oh, cool. Debbie, you got that note today?
You're on the list. Faith also has an incredible book out that I think we should all take a look at. It is more about, it's outside of the data thing, but it's on mental health and, to be the best person that you can be so we can just function our everyday lives and show up 100% and fully ourselves. And I have forgotten what it is called. My apologies, Faith. I don't know if you want to chat on it.
Put up a link.
It's a little bit biased because of the topic, but trust me, it's not. So it's healing a bruised heart of a broken woman. But even men's hearts could be broken, right? And they need to be healed. So what we said to Debbie the other day, or rather what I always speak about, is that we need to become the best versions of ourselves so that we can deliver the best expected outcomes. So if we just go to work and you want to work and nobody cares about how you feel, nobody cares about your family, the family is falling apart and a lot of things are falling apart, trust me, you will try everything in your power to make it right at work, but everything will just fall apart. Why? Because things inside you, within your inner being, is a little bit messy. So if we don't take care of ourselves to make sure that we are right, then we will drag going to the office all the time. So it speaks mostly around that as well.
Debs, I see there was some hands up.
Yes, we do have a hand from Naif. I hope that's how we pronounce your name. I don't know if you would like to ask.
Thank you, Faith, for your time and for putting this together. It was really insightful. I do have a question for Debbie. Would it be possible to share the recording of this session, please?
Yes, definitely. I will have to edit it and then I'll post it. I will comment on every person that has RSVP'd and everyone that has joined on the LinkedIn page, the post, and then you can just request it through there. I'll also try to remember that you have asked for it. Yeah, the recording will be distributed. Thank you so much for asking.
You all.
Any other questions? We ready for dinner?
Ready for dinner.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I see so many people have really found a lot of interest and knowledge from your presentation, and we really appreciate you sharing with our community. So thank you, and I hope we can see you in 2022 again.
It's all in your hands, Debs. It's all in your hands. You know my number, right? It's all in your hands.
Debs, when you
Thank
make
you
the
so much.
presentation available, would you put a link in there to the book?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It doesn't have any sensitive information. It's available. Like we can
Or
definitely.
Faith, maybe you can update your slides and include the title of the book and then send it to Debbie.
Oh, perfect. I can do that as well. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, I will send the recording and the slides. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
All right then.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.